falls in a forest, does it make music? This is a much tougher question to answer than it seems at face value, because it warrants the new question, what is music? And that's exactly the problem, because it's been debated for ages. Webster Dictionary defines music as the science or art of ordering tones or sounds in succession, in combination, and in temporal relationships to produce a composition having unity and continuity. That is a mouthful of words to describe something that pretty much all of us engage with on basically a day-to-day basis. However, it's done on purpose. Any definition that's too specific would completely exclude a variety of genres. So, Webster purposely made this definition so broad so that it can encompass all genres in human history and beyond. Can music exist beyond humanity? Well, we at least know that it existed before societies. You've probably heard music referred to as some sort of a language. However, music is prehistoric, meaning it predates the written word, and any known languages to man. Researchers have concluded by finding flutes and other instruments made from bones and cave paintings that music has been alive between 30 and 40,000 years. That is an unbelievably long amount of time, and if it doesn't seem like it, let's just think about hieroglyphics. They've only been around for about 5,000 years. Hieroglyphics, something that seems so ancient to us, has only been alive for fractions of the lifespan of music. Now let's look at this text. I'm assuming most of you cannot read this, but this is actually the opening to Beowulf, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. If you're unfamiliar with it, this was written in Old English. This, just 1,000 years ago, was English, which, except for a couple of words here and there, any of us modern English speakers without the proper training would have no way of interpreting this. But what about music? What if I played you a piece of music from the same time period that Beowulf was written, about 1,000 years ago? You'd have an emotional understanding of the music. Maybe it's fast with dense rhythms and it's excited, or maybe it's slow and more calm, or maybe it's major and happy or minor and sad. Regardless, you'd have an emotional understanding of the composer's intentions. Whereas if I were to stumble my way through all the fancy symbols in Beowulf, I don't think that any of you would be able to understand it anymore. If not, I would probably make it harder for you. But music is special because it does not require a translation. So how could we consider it a language? We can't. Calling it a language just completely undermines its immortal and universal properties. But music is a lot like a language, and we generally do tend to accept that, and it has been psychologically proven to have those linguistic properties. But it's really just not the same. English will die. All the words that I am saying now will eventually have meaning to no living organisms. Even the most popular languages in the world, like Spanish, Mandarin, they will die, whether it's with humanity or before. But music will never die because it is immortal. There will always be music somewhere in the universe, even if our planet explodes. If that's hard for you to understand, let's just think of what music really is then. Music is organic. All the sounds that we use are organic in some way. My voice is organic, a singer's voice is organic. Even though we build instruments, the vibrations that come from them are natural. So couldn't any natural sound, whether it was intentional or not, really be considered music? If you don't really understand that, let's just look at a beach. Bird calls are often respected as music, and even transcribed in a lot of works and used in pieces by composers. But that's because bird calls have pitch. What about something that doesn't have pitch, like the winds or the waves? Well, they have patterns. The sounds stack upon each other, and these patterns are repeated over and over again, and it has some sort of form to it. If you still don't believe me, let's just look back at Webster. The science or art. All of these things somehow are scientific, such as the tides of the ocean, of ordering sounds or tones. Obviously, not all of these are tones because they don't have pitch, but I think we can all agree that they make sound. In succession, in combination, and in temporal relationships. The sounds stack upon each other to build this pattern that keeps getting repeated over and over again. To form a composition having unity and continuity. The repetition of those patterns allow us to anticipate what's going to come next, forming some sort of a composition. So doesn't it make sense why listening to all the waves of the beach could be relaxing? That's because these are all sound aesthetics. An aesthetic is something that is pleasing, something that is attractive, and a sound aesthetic would just be something that is pleasing to listen to, something that pleases your auditory sense, something that doesn't necessarily need to have rhythm, melody, or any sort of pitch at all. However, when we analyze a lot of pop music, we tend to see that sound aesthetics do exist with a lot of pitch, rhythm, and melody. The best example in today's music would be a singer's voice. Yes, classical music is still very prevalent, but a lot of singers don't strive for that classically trained, flawless voice. In a lot of pop music, singers use their unique voices to sort of brand themselves in that way, so that when you hear their song, you know exactly who it is just by their voice. Some of the best examples of these kinds of artists would be Eminem, Bob Dylan, Billie Eilish, Halsey, Grace VanderWaal, or even Fetty Wap. If you hear their song, you know exactly who it is because of the brand that they have created with the sound aesthetic of their voice. So that's what makes music really special. There are a lot of reasons why music is special, which is why we really hold it dear to us as a society after 30,000 years. But we have to take in consideration that this is probably because music is the only art form that appeals strictly to your auditory sense. Sure, a lot of films and audiobooks have a lot to listen to, but the fact that they have words and dialogue, and that's necessary for the art form, it completely takes that beyond just sound aesthetics. So, can everything be considered music? Yes, because not only do all sounds have musical properties, but we even use these sounds and recognize them in compositions. So I've labeled music as a lot of things, because I can. Because as a society, we have expanded the platform of the music industry to the extent where it can exist as all of these things. We have given it an immortal power so that we'll never get bored or run out of ideas, so that music can live forever. So music will never die, because there will always be a sound somewhere in the universe that we would have considered music. So if a tree falls in the forest, it must be the percussion in the wind's symphony, whether humans are around to hear it or not. Thank you.